Three men in uniform pinned a young female soldier against a booth. One grabbed her wrist, another blocked her exit. The whole diner saw it. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. Then a 7-year-old girl tugged her father's sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, please help her." He put his coffee down. He stood up. And in 10 seconds flat, all three men were on the floor, gasping, disarmed, and done. Nobody in that diner knew his name. Nobody knew he was former SEAL Team 6. But by the next morning, a Navy Admiral's black SUV was parked in his driveway. And what he asked him to do changed everything. Drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. And if you haven't yet, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss what comes next. His name was Ethan Cole. And if you'd asked anyone in Cedar Falls who he was, they'd have told you the same thing. Good guy. Quiet. Works construction. Raises his little girl on his own. That was it. That was the whole story, as far as anyone knew. He lived in a small rental house at the edge of town, about 12 minutes from the military base. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms. A porch with a broken screen door he kept meaning to fix. A backyard with a swing set he'd built himself the week after they moved in. His daughter's name was Lily. She was 7. Brown hair, big, serious eyes that always looked like they were studying you. She talked too much, laughed too loud, and had a habit of asking questions that no grown man was ready to answer. "Daddy, why don't you have friends?" "I have friends." "No, you don't. You have Larry from the hardware store. And Larry doesn't count because you only talk to him when something breaks." Ethan had looked at her that day and almost laughed. Almost. Because the truth was, she was right. He didn't have friends. Not real ones. Not anymore. He had a routine. Wake up at 5, coffee, pack Lily's lunch, drop her at school, drive to the job site, swing a hammer until his shoulders burned, pick her up at 3:15, cook dinner, help with homework, read her a story, lights out by 8:30. Repeat, every single day. And on Saturdays, the diner. That was the rule. Lily had made it up herself when she was 5, and Ethan had never broken it. Not once. Not when it rained. Not when he was sick. Not when every part of him wanted to stay in bed and stare at the ceiling and pretend the world didn't exist. Saturdays were hers. "Chocolate chip pancakes," she'd say the second they walked through the door. Same booth, same order, same waitress, Gloria, mid-60s, arms like a linebacker, smile like a grandmother. "Morning, sweetheart," Gloria would say. "Morning, Miss Gloria. Daddy wants black coffee and he's going to pretend he doesn't want pancakes, but he does." Gloria would look at Ethan. Ethan would shake his head. Just the coffee. And Lily would grin like she'd already won. That was their life. Simple. Small. Safe. And Ethan had built it that way on purpose. Because 5 years ago, his life had been something very different. 5 years ago, Ethan Cole wasn't a construction worker. He was Master Chief Petty Officer Ethan Cole. SEAL Team 6. 3 combat deployments. 2 Bronze Stars. A Silver Star he never talked about. A classified service record that most people in the intelligence community still couldn't fully access. He had been one of the most effective operators the Navy had ever produced. And he had walked away from all of it. Not because he was broken. Not because he couldn't do it anymore. Because his wife asked him to. Her name was Rachel. And the thing about Rachel was, she never once asked him to quit. Not in 10 years of marriage. Not through the missed birthdays, the holidays alone, the phone calls at 2 in the morning, where all she could hear was static and silence. Not through the deployments where she wouldn't hear from him for weeks, and she'd lie awake, wondering if the next knock on her door would be 2 officers in dress whites. She never asked. Until Lily was born. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't an ultimatum. Rachel wasn't that kind of woman. She just sat him down one night after Lily had fallen asleep on his chest, and she said something he never forgot. "She's going to need you, Ethan. Not a photograph of you. Not a folded flag. Her." He didn't answer right away. He held Lily tighter. He could feel her heartbeat against his ribs, fast and tiny, like a bird's. And he knew. He filed his paperwork 3 weeks later. Honorable discharge, full benefits. A handshake from his commanding officer that lasted a little too long, like the man was trying to memorize the feel of it. "You sure about this?" the CO had asked. "No, sir," Ethan had said, "but I'm sure about her." He came home for good. They moved to Cedar Falls. Rachel found a teaching job at the elementary school. Ethan picked up construction work. They bought groceries on Thursdays. They went to church on Sundays. Lily started kindergarten. Life was ordinary, and for the first time in Ethan's adult life, ordinary felt like a miracle. Then Rachel got sick. It started with headaches, then fatigue, then a doctor's visit that turned into a referral, that turned into a scan, that turned into a conversation in a small white room where a man in a white coat said words that didn't make sense. Stage 4. Aggressive. Inoperable. Ethan had been shot at. He'd been ambushed. He'd held a teammate's hand while the man bled out in a helicopter over the Hindu Kush. But nothing had ever made him feel the way those words did. Rachel fought. God, she fought. 14 months of chemo, radiation, trial drugs, second opinions, third opinions. She fought the way she did everything. Quietly, fiercely, without complaint. But in the end, the disease didn't care how brave she was. She died on a Tuesday morning in April. Lily was 2. Ethan held his wife's hand until it went cold, and then he walked into the hallway, pressed his back against the wall, slid to the floor, and didn't move for an hour. A nurse brought him water. He didn't drink it. When he finally stood up, he made a decision. He would bury the man he used to be. Every piece of him. The uniform, the medals, the reflexes, the nightmares, the training. All of it. He would lock it away so deep that it would never touch Lily's life. She would grow up knowing a father, not a soldier, not a killer, not a ghost who woke up screaming at 3 a.m. A father. That was the deal he made with himself. And for 5 years, he kept it. He kept it when a drunk at the hardware store shoved him and called him a name. He walked away. He kept it when a road rage incident on the highway turned ugly, and a man twice his size got out of a truck and came at him with a tire iron. He drove off. He kept it every time his hands remembered what they were trained to do, and his brain said no. Because the promise he'd made wasn't to himself. It was to Rachel. Keep her safe. Keep her whole. Don't let this life touch her. And he had. Until that Saturday. It was 8:15 in the morning. Ethan and Lily walked into the diner the same way they always did. Her hand in his, her backpack bouncing, her voice already going. "Daddy, did you know that octopuses have 3 hearts?" "I did not know that." "Well, now you do. You're welcome." Gloria waved from behind the counter. "Morning, you two." "Miss Gloria, did you know octopuses have 3 hearts?" "I did not, baby girl." "Nobody knows anything," Lily said, shaking her head like she was personally disappointed in the entire adult population. Ethan smiled. He guided her to their booth. She slid in. He sat across from her. "Chocolate chip pancakes?" he asked. She looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Obviously." Gloria brought his coffee. Lily colored on her placemat. The morning felt the same as every other Saturday. And then it didn't. They came in loud. 3 of them. All military. All in uniform. You could tell even before you saw the insignia. The posture, the haircuts, the way they moved like they owned whatever room they walked into. 2 were big, linebacker builds. The third was leaner, sharper, with a jaw that looked like it had been carved with a hatchet and eyes that didn't blink enough. They grabbed a booth near the back. Their voices carried. You see Rodriguez's face when the CO pulled him in? Thought he was going to cry. Rodriguez is soft, always was. Half this base is soft. They laughed. They ordered. They were loud, but they weren't a problem. Not yet. The problem started when the young soldier walked in. She was maybe 24, 25. Short hair, uniform pressed. She walked in alone, ordered coffee to go, and stood near the counter waiting for it. She didn't look at them, but they looked at her. The lean one, the one with a hatchet jaw, said something under his breath. The other 2 laughed. She kept her eyes forward. Hey, Hatchet Jaw called out. Specialist. She didn't turn. I said, hey! Gloria set the coffee on the counter. The young soldier reached for it, and then Hatchet Jaw was out of his seat. He moved fast, crossing the diner in 3 long strides. He stepped right into her space, close enough that she had to lean back. I'm talking to you, Specialist. You deaf? She stood her ground, but Ethan could see it, the slight shift in her weight, the way her jaw tightened, the controlled breathing. She was scared, and she was trained enough to hide it. Sergeant, I'm just getting coffee, she said. Calm, even, professional. You file that complaint against Mitchell? She didn't answer. That's what I thought. He leaned closer. You know what happens to people who can't keep their mouth shut. The other 2 were on their feet now. One moved to her left. The other blocked the door. The diner went quiet. 12 people in that room. 12 adults, Ethan counted. Some looked at their plates. Some looked out the window. One couple near the door suddenly became very interested in the menu. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. Hatchetjaw grabbed the coffee cup out of her hand and set it on the counter. Hard. Sit down, he said. We're going to have a conversation. I don't want a conversation, Sergeant. I didn't ask what you want. One of the others put his hand on her shoulder. Not gently. She flinched. And that's when Lily stopped coloring. Ethan was watching. He'd been watching since the 3 of them walked in. Old habits. He'd clocked their positions, their body language, their likely threat level, all of it, automatically, before his conscious mind even caught up. It was like breathing. You don't decide to breathe, you just do. But he hadn't moved. Because the deal was the deal. He was a construction worker. He was a father. He was nobody. Then Lily looked up at him. Her big, serious eyes were full of something he'd never seen before. Not fear, not confusion. It was a question, and she asked it out loud. Daddy, please help her. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper, but it hit him like a freight train. He looked at his daughter. She looked back. And in that moment, Ethan Cole understood something he'd been getting wrong for 5 years. He thought burying who he was would keep Lily safe. He thought silence was protection. He thought walking away was strength. But his 7-year-old daughter, sitting in a diner booth with a crayon in her hand and syrup on her chin, was looking at him and asking him to be the man he'd been pretending not to be. Not because she wanted violence. because she wanted someone to do what was right, and nobody else was doing it. He reached across the table, took a napkin, wiped the syrup off her chin. "Stay right here, baby." "Okay, Daddy." He stood up, slow, controlled, no rush, no adrenaline. Not yet. He walked toward the counter the way he might walk toward a job site, steady, unhurried, like he had all the time in the world. Hatchetjaw didn't even notice him until he was 4 feet away. "Let her go." 3 words, spoken low, spoken calm. The kind of calm that men who've seen real danger learn to carry like a second skin. Hatchetjaw turned and looked him up and down. Jeans, work boots, flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up, sawdust on his hands. He smiled. "Mind your business, old man." Ethan didn't move. "I said let her go." The one on the left laughed. "Buddy, you really want to do this?" Ethan looked at him, then at the one blocking the door, then back at Hatchetjaw. 3 men, all trained, all armed with ego and the confidence that comes from never being challenged. And standing in front of them, one quiet man who built decks for a living. That's what they saw. What they didn't see was 17 years of the most advanced combat training on Earth. What they didn't see was the muscle memory that never goes away, no matter how many years you spend swinging a hammer. What they didn't see was a man who had killed more enemy combatants than any of them had ever seen in a briefing room. Hatchetjaw shoved him, hard, open palm to the chest. Ethan didn't step back, didn't even rock. "Touch me again," Ethan said, "and I'll put you on the floor." Hatchetjaw laughed. He looked at his boys. They laughed too. Then he shoved Ethan again. That was the last free decision he made for the next 10 seconds. Ethan caught the hand mid-shove. He redirected the momentum, rotating Hatchetjaw's wrist in a direction wrists aren't designed to go. Not far enough to break, just far enough to drop him to one knee, with a sound that came from somewhere deep in his throat. A sound between a gasp and a groan. The one on the left charged. Ethan sidestepped. One short, precise strike to the solar plexus. The man folded like a lawn chair. Hit the floor wheezing. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't stand. Wouldn't be able to do either for about 90 seconds. The one by the door hesitated. That was the difference between trained and experienced. Trained men react. Experienced men read. Ethan read him in half a second. Right-handed. Weight on his back foot. Scared, but committed. He came forward. Threw a punch. Ethan slipped it. Caught the arm. Applied a standing joint lock that hyperextended the elbow just enough to send a clear, unmistakable message. The man screamed. Ethan controlled the descent. Put him on the ground. Held him there. "Stay down." He stayed down. Hatchetjaw was trying to get up. Ethan walked back to him, knelt, and spoke directly into his ear. "You're done. You're done harassing her. You're done intimidating anyone. And if I hear you went near her again, or anyone like her, I will find you. And next time, I won't be this gentle. Not if you understand." He nodded. 10 seconds, maybe 12. No broken bones, no blood, no rage. Just surgical, precise, absolute control. The diner was silent. 12 people staring, mouths open, coffee getting cold. Ethan stood up. He straightened his flannel. He turned to the young soldier. "You okay?" She was shaking. Not from fear now, from relief. The kind of shaking that happens when your body finally lets go of something it's been holding too tight for too long. "Yes," she whispered. "Thank you." Ethan nodded. File your report. Don't let anyone talk you out of it. You did the right thing. She nodded, tears on her cheeks, jaw set. He turned and walked back to his booth. Lily was sitting exactly where he'd left her, hands in her lap, eyes wide. You okay? He asked. She nodded. Finish your pancakes. She picked up her fork, looked at him, and then she said something that cracked him wide open. Mommy would have been proud of you. He didn't answer. He picked up his coffee. It was cold. He drank it anyway. Gloria came over, refilled his cup without a word, and put her hand on his shoulder for just a moment before walking away. The three men left the diner in silence. Nobody followed them out. But everyone in that room remembered what they'd seen. Not because of the fight, because of the 7-year-old girl who'd asked her father to stand up, and the father who'd listened. They finished breakfast. Lily ate every bite. Ethan paid the check. Gloria refused his money like she always did, and he left it on the table like he always did. They walked to the truck. He buckled her in. She was quiet for a long time. Then, as he pulled out of the parking lot, she said, Daddy? Yeah, baby? Are those men going to be in trouble? I hope so. Good. She looked out the window. Daddy? Yeah? You're really strong. He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Not as strong as you. She laughed. That's silly. I can't even open the pickle jar. He smiled, and for the first time in 5 years, it didn't feel like pretending. That night, after Lily was asleep, Ethan sat on the back porch and stared at the dark. He hadn't used those skills in 5 years, hadn't wanted to, hadn't needed to. He'd been so careful, so disciplined, so committed to the idea that the man he used to be was gone. But that man wasn't gone. He was just waiting. Ethan flexed his right hand. The knuckles were sore, not from striking, but from gripping, from holding back, from controlling every ounce of force so precisely that the only thing those men would remember was the fear, not the damage. That was the hardest part, not the fighting, the restraint. Any man can throw a punch. It takes something else entirely to know exactly how much force will end a threat without ending a life. He thought about Rachel. He thought about what she'd say if she'd been sitting in that booth. And he knew, with the same certainty he'd known when he'd held Lily for the first time, that Rachel wouldn't have been angry. She would have said, "It's about time," because Rachel had never wanted him to stop being who he was. She'd wanted him to be present, to be a father, to be here. She hadn't asked him to become someone else. He'd done that on his own. He pulled out his phone. No messages, no missed calls, just a photo on his lock screen. Lily at the park, mid-laugh, missing her 2 front teeth. He stared at it for a long time. Then he went inside, checked on Lily, pulled the blanket up to her chin, and whispered, "I love you, kid." She mumbled something in her sleep that might have been, "I know." He went to bed, and for the first time in 5 years, he didn't dream about war. He didn't dream about anything. He just slept. At 6:47 the next morning, Ethan was in the kitchen making Lily's lunch. Turkey sandwich, apple slices, 2 cookies she wasn't supposed to know about, when he heard the sound. Tires on gravel. Not 1 vehicle. 3. He set the knife down, walked to the window. 3 black SUVs. Government plates. The kind of vehicles you only see in 2 situations. Someone's getting arrested, or someone's getting recruited. The doors opened. Men in suits, military bearing. Earpieces. And 1 man in a Navy dress uniform. Stars on his collar. Silver hair. The kind of posture that said he'd spent 40 years in service and didn't know how to stand any other way. Ethan knew him. Rear Admiral James Whitmore. They'd met twice before, once at a classified briefing in Virginia, once at a memorial service for 6 operators who didn't come home. Whitmore walked up the porch steps and knocked on the door. Ethan opened it. They stood there for a moment, 2 men who understood the weight of what was about to happen. "Ethan," the Admiral said. "Admiral? May I come in?" Ethan looked past him at the SUVs, at the men standing beside them, at the world he'd left behind, parked in his driveway, like it had never agreed to leave. He stepped aside. The Admiral walked in, and the quiet life Ethan Cole had built, carefully, deliberately, brick by brick, began to crack. The Admiral sat at the kitchen table like he belonged there, hands folded, back straight, eyes scanning the room the way operators scan a room, not looking for threats, but for information. The crayon drawings on the refrigerator, the pink backpack hanging by the door, the half-made turkey sandwich on the counter. He was reading Ethan's life in 30 seconds. Ethan poured 2 cups of coffee, set one in front of Whitmore, didn't sit down. "How'd you find me?" Ethan asked. "You're not as invisible as you think." "I've been invisible for 5 years. Nobody came looking." "Nobody needed to." The Admiral picked up the coffee, took a slow sip, set it down. "Until now." Ethan leaned against the counter and crossed his arms. "The diner. The diner. Someone had a phone. Several people had phones. The video was on a military forum by Saturday night. By Sunday morning, it was on my desk. And you recognized me from a cell phone video of a guy in a flannel shirt?" The Admiral looked at him. "Ethan, I watched you take down 3 trained soldiers in 10 seconds without breaking a sweat. There are maybe 6 men alive who can do that. I know all of them. 3 are still active. 2 are in federal prison." He paused. "That left you." Ethan said nothing. "Master Chief Petty Officer Ethan Cole, SEAL Team 6, 11 years active, 3 deployments, 2 Bronze Stars, a Silver Star for an operation that still doesn't officially exist. Retired 5 years ago following the death of his wife. Current residence, Cedar Falls. Current occupation, construction." The Admiral recited it like he was reading a grocery list. "How am I doing?" "You forgot the part where I don't do this anymore." "I haven't forgotten anything." Ethan glanced toward the hallway. Lily's door was still closed. She usually slept until 7:30 on Sundays. He had maybe 40 minutes before she came padding out in her pajamas, asking who was in the kitchen. "Say what you came to say, Admiral." Whitmore reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila folder. He placed it on the table, but didn't open it. 4 days ago, an American contractor named David Mercer was kidnapped in eastern Syria along with his wife, Sarah, and their 2 children. Thomas, age 11, Emma, age 8. Ethan didn't move. Mercer was doing infrastructure work for a U.S.-backed reconstruction project. Civilian. No military affiliation. His family was visiting him because his daughter asked to see where Daddy worked. The Admiral let that land. They were taken from a convoy ambush 14 miles outside a secured zone. 3 security personnel killed. The family was transported to a location we've since identified as a compound controlled by a splinter militia group with ties to 3 different hostile organizations. "Send a team." We did. Reconnaissance only. The compound is in a populated area. Dense civilian presence. The militia is using the family as leverage for a prisoner exchange that the United States will not agree to. A conventional assault risks the hostages and guarantees civilian casualties that would turn into an international incident. So send a smaller team. That's why I'm here. Ethan shook his head. No. You haven't heard what I'm asking. I don't need to hear it. The answer is no. The Admiral opened the folder. Inside were photographs, satellite imagery, a blueprint of the compound, and 4 photographs clipped to the inside cover. David Mercer, mid-40s, glasses, the kind of face you'd see coaching Little League. Sarah Mercer, blonde hair, smile that looked like it came easy. Thomas, 11, braces, holding a football. Emma, 8 years old, brown hair, big eyes, missing a front tooth. Ethan looked at the photo of Emma Mercer for exactly 2 seconds. Then he closed the folder and pushed it back across the table. "I have a daughter, Admiral." "I know you do. She's down the hall sleeping right now. She doesn't know who I was. She doesn't know what I did. And I made a promise to my wife, my dying wife, that I would keep it that way." "I understand. Then you understand why I'm telling you to leave." Whitmore didn't stand up. He didn't reach for the folder. He just sat there, hands folded, looking at Ethan with an expression that wasn't anger and wasn't pity. It was patience. The kind of patience that comes from decades of asking men to do impossible things. "That girl," the Admiral said quietly. "Emma. She's 8. She likes drawing. Her mother told the negotiator during the one phone call we got that Emma keeps asking when they're going home. Stop. She asked if someone was coming to help them. I said stop. Her father told her yes, someone is coming. He lied to her, Ethan, because he doesn't know if anyone is." Ethan turned away. He gripped the edge of the counter with both hands and stared at the wall. Silence. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, a bird was singing like nothing in the world was wrong. "Why me?" Ethan said without turning around. "You've got active teams. You've got operators who've been training for exactly this kind of thing every day for the last 5 years, while I've been building porches." "Because this isn't a standard operation. This requires a specific skill set. Small team, 3 to 4 operators. Covert insertion. No support. No extraction plan until the hostages are secured. The rules of engagement are almost non-existent because this mission doesn't officially exist." Ethan turned around. "Black book. As black as it gets. And if it goes wrong?" "It won't go wrong. Not with you leading it." "Everything goes wrong, Admiral. You know that better than anyone." Whitmore nodded slowly. "You're right. It might. But here's what I know. I've seen every operator on the active roster. I've read every evaluation, every after-action report, every psych assessment, and not one of them has your combination of experience, judgment, and restraint. I watched that video from the diner 6 times, Ethan. You know what I saw? A guy who should have minded his own business. I saw a man who neutralized 3 threats in a confined civilian space with 0 collateral damage and 0 unnecessary force. That's not skill. That's wisdom. And wisdom is exactly what this mission requires. Because there are children in that compound, and I need someone who understands what that means." Ethan stared at him. The Admiral stared back. "1 mission," Whitmore said. 30 days. Then you come home. You go back to your life. Nobody will ever know. Lily will know. She'll know I'm gone. We'll arrange care for her. Your sister in Virginia. Or anyone you. My sister hasn't spoken to me in 3 years. Then we'll find someone. We'll make it work." "You don't get it." Ethan's voice dropped. Not louder. Lower. The way a man's voice drops when he's not arguing anymore. When he's telling you something true. "I don't leave her. I don't leave her for a day. I don't leave her for an hour. She already lost her mother. I am the only thing she has. And if I go over there and I don't come back..." He stopped. He couldn't say it. He didn't need to. The Admiral stood up. Slowly. He buttoned his jacket. He picked up the folder. "I'm not going to pressure you, Ethan. You've given more to this country than most men could give in 3 lifetimes. You don't owe anyone anything." He walked to the door, opened it, then he stopped. "But that little girl in Syria, Emma, she's the same age as Lily. She draws pictures. She asks questions nobody can answer. And right now, she's sitting in a room she can't leave, wondering if someone is coming." He placed a card on the table by the door. "If you change your mind, call that number. You have 72 hours." He walked out. The SUVs pulled away and the gravel settled, and the house was quiet again. Ethan stood in the kitchen for a long time. He didn't move. He didn't pick up the card. He stared at the half-made sandwich on the counter and tried to remember what he'd been doing before the world showed up at his door. Turkey sandwich, apple slices, 2 cookies. He finished making the lunch. He put it in the pink lunchbox. He wiped the counter. Normal things, small things, the things that hold a life together when everything else is trying to pull it apart. "Daddy?" He turned. Lily was standing in the hallway, pajamas with little stars on them, hair tangled, eyes sleepy. "Morning, baby." "Who was that?" He hesitated. 1 second. That's all it was. 1 second of pause. But Lily caught it. She always caught everything. "Just someone from work." "On a Sunday?" "Yeah, on a Sunday." She studied him. Those big, serious eyes. The same ones that had looked at him in the diner and asked him to stand up. "You look sad," she said. "I'm not sad." "You're doing the thing with your jaw. You only do that when you're sad, or when the Cowboys lose." He almost laughed. "Come here." She walked over. He picked her up, even though she was getting too big for it, and held her against his chest. "You hungry?" he asked. "Always." "Waffles? With blueberries? Is there any other way?" She grinned, and for a moment the world was exactly the right size. He made waffles. She ate 3. He ate 1 and drank 2 cups of coffee, and watched her talk about a dream she'd had, where their cat, they didn't have a cat, learned to drive a truck. "And then the cat crashed into a lake, and the fish were really mad, Daddy, like really mad." "I'd be mad too." "You'd be mad at the cat or the fish?" "Both." "That's fair." He cleaned up. She brushed her teeth. They went to the park. She played on the swings. He sat on the bench and watched her fly back and forth, back and forth. And he thought about a little girl named Emma, who was sitting in a room she couldn't leave. He didn't want to think about it. He thought about it anyway. That night, after Lily's bath, after the story, she'd picked the one about the rabbit who built a boat. The same one she'd picked every night for 2 weeks. Ethan sat on the edge of her bed. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "Those men at the diner yesterday. The ones who were being mean to that lady." "What about them?" "Why did they do that?" He thought about how to answer. How do you explain cruelty to a 7-year-old? How do you tell a child that some people use their strength to hurt others, and most people just watch? "Some people," he said carefully, "think being strong means being mean. They think if they can scare someone, that makes them powerful." "That's dumb." "Yeah, it is." "You're strong, and you're not mean." "I try not to be." She was quiet for a moment. He could see her thinking, the gears turning behind those eyes. "Daddy, that man who came to the house today, the one from work." Ethan's stomach tightened. "Yeah?" "He wasn't really from work, was he?" 7 years old, and she could read a lie the way some people read a book. He exhaled. No, baby, he wasn't. Who was he? He was someone I used to know, from a long time ago, before you were born. What did he want? Ethan looked at her. She was tucked under her blanket, holding the stuffed bear Rachel had given her before she died. She called it Captain. He wanted my help, Ethan said. With what? There's a family, far away. They're in trouble. There's a little girl. She's about your age, and they need someone to go help them. Lily sat up. Like the lady at the diner? Sort of, but further away, and harder. And he wants you to go? Yeah. Are you going to? I told him no. She was quiet again, longer this time. Then she said something that stopped his heart. Because of me? He looked at her. What? You said no because of me. Because you don't want to leave me. Lily, Daddy, I'm not a baby. I know things. He stared at his daughter, 7 years old, and she was looking at him with an expression that was so much like Rachel's that it physically hurt. If you go, she said, will you help them? Like you helped that lady? It's not the same, baby. But will you help them? He couldn't answer. Daddy, that little girl, the one who's my age. Yeah? Is she scared? He closed his eyes. Probably. Then you should go. Lily, I'll be scared too. Her voice wobbled, just a little, just enough. But I'll be proud, like how I was proud at the diner, when everybody else was just sitting there and you stood up. He opened his eyes. She was crying, quietly. The way Rachel used to cry. No sound, just tears running down her face, while the rest of her stayed perfectly still. I don't want you to go, she whispered. But I don't want her to be scared either. He reached out and pulled her into his chest, held her, felt her heart hammering against his. That tiny, fast heartbeat. The same one he'd felt the night Rachel told him to come home. I'll come back, he said. Promise? Promise. Pinky promise? He held out his pinky. She wrapped hers around it, small and warm and certain. Pinky promise, he said. She pulled back, wiped her face with the back of her hand, looked at him with those eyes, Rachel's eyes. God, they were Rachel's eyes, and said, You better not break it. I won't, because pinky promises are serious. I know they are. More serious than regular promises. I know. She nodded, satisfied. Then she lay back down, pulled Captain the bear close, and said, Daddy? Yeah, baby. When you help that girl, tell her she's going to be okay. Tell her someone came. His throat closed. He couldn't speak for a moment. When he could, his voice didn't sound like his own. I'll tell her. Good. She closed her eyes. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Lily. He sat on her bed for 10 minutes after she fell asleep, watching her breathe, counting the breaths the way he used to count heartbeats in the field. Steady, rhythmic, alive. Then he stood up. He walked to the kitchen. He picked up the Admiral's card. He dialed the number. It rang once. Whitmore. It's Cole. Silence on the other end. Just for a beat. Then the Admiral's voice, steady and unsurprised, like he'd been sitting by the phone. When can you be ready? Ethan looked down the hallway toward Lily's room. The nightlight was glowing under her door. Pink. She'd picked it out herself. 72 hours, he said. I need to make arrangements for my daughter. I need to know she's safe. I need to know the person watching her is someone I trust with my life. Done. And I pick my team. Already anticipated that. I have files on. I don't need files. I know who I want. Another pause. Who? Reeves, Torres, and if he's still alive and still crazy enough to say yes, Dutch. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Dutch is in Montana. He runs a fishing charter. Then I guess someone's going to Montana. I'll make the call tonight. One more thing, Admiral. Name it. I come home. That's not negotiable. Whatever happens over there, whatever goes sideways, I come home to my daughter. You build the extraction plan around that. You don't leave me hanging. You don't disavow. You don't write me off. I come home. You have my word. Your word and $5 gets me a cup of coffee. I need more than that. What do you need? I need to hear you say it. Say my daughter's name. Say her name and tell me she'll never sit in this house wondering what happened to her father. The Admiral's voice changed, just slightly, just enough that Ethan could hear it. The shift from officer to human being. Lily, he said. Lily Cole will never wonder what happened to her father. I give you my word as a man, not as an officer. You will come home. Ethan exhaled. I'll be ready in 72 hours. He hung up. He put the phone down on the counter. He stood in the kitchen of his small rental house in Cedar Falls, and he felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. Not fear. He'd made peace with fear a long time ago. Purpose. The old weight settling back onto his shoulders. Not the weight of violence. Not the weight of war. The weight of responsibility. The weight of being the man who walks into the room when everyone else walks out. He'd spent 5 years trying to set that weight down. His 7-year-old daughter had just picked it up and handed it back to him. He checked the locks. He checked the windows. He checked on Lily one more time. She was sleeping with Captain tucked under her chin. Her breathing was slow and even. Her face was peaceful. He knelt beside her bed. I'm going to keep my promise, he whispered. All of them. The one I made to your mom. The one I made to you. And the one I just made to a little girl I haven't met yet. Lily shifted in her sleep. Her hand tightened around the bear. Ethan stood up. He walked to the hallway closet, reached to the back of the top shelf, pushed aside old blankets and a box of Christmas decorations. His hand closed around a black duffel bag he hadn't touched in 5 years. He pulled it out, unzipped it. Inside, folded with military precision, was his old gear. Not a uniform, just the tools of a trade he'd tried to forget. A watch his team had given him. A folding knife he'd carried through 3 deployments. A photograph, creased, faded, of Rachel, taken the day they'd gotten married. He held the photograph for a long time. Then he put it in his pocket, zipped the bag, and began to pack. He didn't sleep that night. He sat at the kitchen table with the black duffel bag on the floor beside him and a legal pad in front of him. He wrote down everything Lily would need. Her school schedule, her allergies, strawberries and penicillin. The name of her teacher, Mrs. Ramos. The name of her dentist. The fact that she wouldn't eat the crust on bread unless you cut it off first. And that she'd tell you she wasn't afraid of the dark, but she was. And that she needed the pink nightlight on, and Captain the Bear in her arms, or she wouldn't sleep. He filled 3 pages. Then he picked up the phone and called the only person he trusted. Gloria picked up on the 4th ring. Her voice was heavy with sleep. Someone better be dead or dying. It's Ethan. Ethan Cole. Silence. Then a long exhale. Honey, it's 4 in the morning. I know. I'm sorry. I need your help. What kind of help? The kind I can't explain over the phone. Can I come see you? Today. Early. Another pause. He could hear her sitting up. Sheets rustling. The click of a lamp. Come at 6, she said. I'll put coffee on. He was at her door at 5:58. Lily was still sleeping. He'd asked his neighbor, a retired postal worker named Frank, who'd watched Lily twice before when Ethan had to work late, to sit in the house until he got back. Gloria opened the door before he knocked. She was already dressed, coffee already made. She looked at him the way she'd looked at him across the counter 100 times, except this time there was no smile. Sit down, she said. He sat. Talk. He told her. Not everything, not the classified details, but enough. He told her he used to be in the military. He told her he'd been called back for something important. He told her there was a family in danger and he was the one they'd asked to help. Gloria listened without interrupting. When he finished, she folded her hands on the table and looked at him hard. How long? 30 days, maybe less. And Lily? That's why I'm here. You want me to take her. I don't trust anyone else. Gloria's eyes softened. She looked away for a moment, and when she looked back, there was something fierce in her expression. Not anger. Protection. That little girl is the best thing that walks into my diner every Saturday. You know that. I know. And you're asking me to look her in the eye every day while her daddy is God knows where, doing God knows what, and keep her safe and keep her happy and keep her from being afraid. Yes, ma'am. You're coming back. Yes. That's not a question, Ethan. I'm telling you. You're coming back. Because if you don't, I'll have to explain to that child why the only person she has left in this world didn't keep his promise. And I will not do that. Do you understand me? Yes, ma'am. Say it. I'm coming back. She nodded, poured him more coffee. What does she know? I told her last night. Not the details, just that someone needs my help and I have to go away for a little while. And she was okay with that? Ethan stared at his cup. She told me to go. She said she'd be scared, but she'd be proud. Gloria's jaw tightened. She blinked hard, twice. Lord, that child. Yeah. She's tougher than you are. I know. Gloria stood up. She walked to the kitchen window and stood there for a moment. Then she turned around. Bring her to me tomorrow. I'll set up the spare room. She likes purple, right? Purple and yellow. I'll get new sheets. She pointed a finger at him. And you call her. Every chance you get. I don't care if it's 30 seconds from a satellite phone at 3 a.m. You call her. I will. Now go home. Spend today with your daughter. Don't pack. Don't plan. Don't think about whatever's coming. Just be her dad. He stood up. He wanted to say something. Something that matched the size of what she was doing for him. But the words didn't come. Gloria walked over, put both hands on his face, and looked him dead in the eye. You are a good man, Ethan Cole. Whatever you did before, whatever you're about to do, you are a good man. Now go home. He drove home. Frank was on the porch reading the paper. Lily was still asleep. Everything okay? Frank asked. Yeah, thanks, Frank. Anytime. That little girl of yours didn't make a peep. Ethan went inside. He made pancakes. Not waffles. Pancakes. Chocolate chip. Saturday pancakes on a Monday morning, because rules didn't matter when the clock was ticking and you didn't know how many mornings you had left. Lily came out of her room rubbing her eyes. She saw the pancakes and stopped. It's not Saturday. I know. You never make pancakes when it's not Saturday. New rule. She climbed into her chair and stared at the plate. Then she looked up at him. You're leaving soon, aren't you? He sat down across from her. Tomorrow. Her lip trembled. Just barely. She caught it, pressed her mouth into a line, nodded. Where am I going? Miss Gloria's house. She's going to take care of you. Does she have a TV? Probably. Does she have good snacks? She owns a diner, Lily. She has all the snacks. A tiny smile, there and gone. How long? About a month. That's a long time. I know, baby. Will you call me? Every chance I get. Every day? He wanted to say yes. He wanted to promise. But he wouldn't lie to her. Not about this. As often as I can. Some days might be hard, but I'll always come back to the phone, okay? She nodded. She picked up her fork, put it down. Daddy? Yeah? That little girl, the one far away. Emma. Emma. She repeated the name like she was memorizing it. When you find her, will you tell her something for me? What do you want me to tell her? Tell her Lily says hi. And tell her she's brave, because she is, even if she doesn't feel like it. He couldn't speak. He reached across the table and held her hand. I'll tell her. She picked up her fork and ate her pancakes, every bite. And when she was done, she said, Can we go to the park? Yeah, we can go to the park. They spent the whole day together. The park, the library, ice cream, even though it was too cold for ice cream, and she got a brain freeze and laughed so hard she snorted. He pushed her on the swings until his arms ached. She read him a book about a dog who wanted to be an astronaut, and he listened to every word like it was the most important story ever told. Because maybe it was. That night, he tucked her in, read her the rabbit book, twice, because she asked. He sat on her bed until her breathing slowed and her hand went limp around Captain's ear. Then he whispered, I love you more than anything in this world, and I'm coming back. That's not a pinky promise. That's a fact. He closed her door, and he let the other man back in. The next 48 hours moved fast. Gloria came for Lily at noon on Tuesday. Lily had packed her own bag, mostly stuffed animals and exactly 2 changes of clothes. Ethan repacked it while she wasn't looking. At the door, Lily hugged him. Tight. The kind of hug where you can feel someone trying to hold on to a moment because they know it's about to end. Be good for Miss Gloria. I'm always good. Be extra good. Fine. She pulled back, looked at him. Don't forget to tell Emma. I won't forget. Gloria took her hand. They walked to the car. Lily got in, buckled herself, waved through the window. Ethan waved back. The car pulled away. He stood in the driveway until he couldn't see it anymore. Then he went inside, and the father disappeared, and the operator took his place. At 1400 hours, a black sedan picked him up. No driver conversation, no radio. Just the road and the low hum of an engine, carrying him toward a life he'd sworn was behind him. They drove to a private airfield 60 miles south. A C-17 was waiting. No markings, no insignia, just gray metal and the smell of jet fuel. The Admiral was standing at the base of the ramp. Your team's already inside. Ethan nodded. He walked up the ramp. 3 men were sitting in the cargo hold. The first one he saw was Reeves. Tall, lean, quiet in the way that dangerous men are quiet. He'd been Ethan's second on the last 2 deployments. The kind of operator who could sit still for 14 hours on Overwatch and then move like lightning when the moment came. They hadn't spoken in 4 years, but when Reeves saw Ethan, he stood up and extended his hand. "Master Chief?" "Don't call me that." "Old habits." Reeves shook his hand, firm, steady. "You look different." "I'm older." "You look like a guy who builds decks." "I do build decks." "And apparently you also put 3 soldiers on the floor in a diner. I saw the video." "Everybody saw the video." "Yeah, well, that's why we're here, isn't it?" Torres was next. Shorter, wider, built like a fire hydrant with a bad attitude. He'd been the team's demolitions expert, and the worst poker player Ethan had ever met. He was sitting with his boots up on a crate, eating an apple like he was on vacation. "Cole." He didn't stand up. He just grinned. "Thought you were dead." "Not dead, just retired." "Same thing." He took another bite. "So, we're doing this?" "We're doing this." "Cool. I was getting bored. My wife says I'm unbearable when I'm bored." "Your wife's right." "She usually is." And then there was Dutch. He was sitting in the back of the cargo hold, away from the others. Big. Not tall big. Thick big. Shoulders like a grizzly bear. Hands that looked like they could crush a cinder block. A beard that hadn't been trimmed since the last administration. He was reading a paperback novel and didn't look up when Ethan approached. "Dutch." "Nothing." "Dutch." He turned a page. "I heard you." "You going to look at me?" Dutch closed the book, looked up. His eyes were the same, pale blue, sharp, the kind of eyes that made you feel like you were being x-rayed. "You look old," Dutch said. "You look like a mountain man." "I am a mountain man. I was fishing. They pulled me off a boat. I had a 20-pound trout on the line, Ethan. 20 pounds. Do you know how rare that is?" "I need you." "You needed me 5 years ago, too, and then you disappeared." That landed. Ethan didn't flinch, but he felt it. "I had my reasons." "I know your reasons." "Your reasons were good, but you left, and you didn't call. Not once. Not a letter, not a damn Christmas card." "I know. 4 men in this world I'd die for. You were one of them, and you ghosted me like a bad Tinder date." "I'm sorry." "You should be." Silence. The engines of the C-17 began to whine. "Are we good?" Ethan asked. Dutch stared at him, hard, searching. Then something shifted behind those pale blue eyes, something that looked like the crack in a dam. "We're good. But you owe me a fishing trip." "Done." "And you're buying the beer." "Done." Dutch stood up. He was massive, the kind of man who filled a room just by being in it. He extended his hand. Ethan took it. The handshake turned into a grip that turned into something that wasn't quite a hug, but wasn't far from it. "Missed you, brother," Dutch said quietly. "Missed you too." Torres clapped from across the hold. "Beautiful. Really. I'm tearing up. Can we go save some people now?" Reeves shook his head. "You haven't changed." "Why would I? I'm perfect." The ramp closed. The engines roared. The plane lurched forward, and then they were in the air, and Cedar Falls was shrinking below them, and Ethan Cole was on his way back to a world he'd tried to leave behind. The Admiral had set up a briefing space in the front of the aircraft. Laptop, maps, satellite imagery updated within the last 12 hours. Ethan gathered his team. "Here's what we know," he said. 4 American hostages, David and Sarah Mercer, their son Thomas, 11, their daughter Emma, 8. Taken 4 days ago from a convoy ambush in eastern Syria. They're being held in a compound controlled by a militia group that calls themselves the Harakat. The group has ties to at least 3 hostile networks. They're using the family as bargaining chips for a prisoner exchange. The United States has declined the exchange. So they're running out of time, Reeves said. Everyone's running out of time. Ethan pulled up the satellite image. The compound. 12 structures, walls on 3 sides. Open desert to the north. A village less than a kilometer to the south. Conventional assault is off the table. Too many civilians. Too much risk of the hostages being moved or killed during the approach. We're going in quiet. Small footprint. Night insertion. Torres leaned in. How many hostiles? Best estimate, 20 to 25. Rotating guard. 4 on the outer perimeter. 2 on the main building. The hostages are believed to be held in the northeast structure. Single story. 1 entrance. Possibly a cellar. Possibly, Dutch repeated. I love that word. Means nobody actually knows. That's correct. The recon team couldn't get close enough to confirm interior layout. That's on us. Rules of engagement? Reeves asked. Minimal force. These aren't enemy combatants in a war zone. This is a kidnapping recovery on foreign soil that the United States government will deny any involvement in. If this goes loud, it becomes an international incident. If civilians get hurt, it becomes a catastrophe. And if we get caught? Torres asked. Ethan looked at him. We don't get caught. But if we do? We don't exist. There's no extraction plan until the hostages are secured. No air support, no backup. We're 4 men walking into a compound held by 25 fighters to rescue a family that includes 2 children, and the entire operation depends on speed, precision, and silence. Torres whistled low. Just like old times. Worse than old times. Worse how? Old times, we didn't have to keep everyone alive. That settled over the team like a weight. Not fear. Operators at this level didn't operate on fear. But respect. A clear-eyed understanding of what they were walking into and what the cost of failure would be. Ethan divided the operation into 3 phases. Infiltration, neutralization, extraction. Phase 1. They'd insert by helicopter 12 miles from the compound. Hike in under cover of darkness. No vehicles, no noise. Arrive at the compound between 0200 and 0300. Phase 2. Reeves would take a position on the high ground to the north. Overwatch. Thermal scope. He'd call the positions of every guard and every hostile within the compound. Dutch and Torres would breach the outer perimeter. 2 entry points simultaneously. Ethan would move to the northeast structure where the hostages were held. Phase 3. Once the hostages were secured, they'd move to a pre-designated extraction point 1.5 kilometers east. A helicopter would meet them there. 30-minute window. If they missed it, they were on foot in hostile territory with 4 civilians, 2 of whom were children. Questions? Ethan asked. Dutch raised his hand. What if the hostages aren't in the northeast building? Then we search every building until we find them. And if they've been moved, transported somewhere else, then we follow. With what intel? Whatever intel we can get on the ground. Dutch nodded slowly. So the plan is, go in, hope for the best, adapt to the worst. That's every plan we've ever had. Fair point. Reeves spoke up. What about the children, Thomas and Emma? If the breach goes loud, they'll be terrified. Panicked children in a combat situation are unpredictable. They scream, they run, they freeze. Ethan had already thought about this. He'd been thinking about it since the Admiral put that photograph on his kitchen table. I'll handle the children, he said. You personally? Me personally. Reeves looked at him. They'd served together long enough to communicate without words. What Reeves saw in Ethan's face was something he hadn't seen before. Not the cold, focused determination of an operator planning a mission. Something deeper. Something that looked like a father who'd made a promise to his daughter to bring another man's daughter home. "Understood," Reeves said. They spent the next 6 hours going over every detail, entry angles, timing, contingencies for 17 different scenarios that could go wrong. They memorized the compound layout until they could walk it in their sleep. They synced their watches, they checked their gear, and then there was nothing left to plan. Torres fell asleep in his seat within minutes. He'd always been able to do that. Sleep anywhere, anytime, like a cat with a demolition certification. Dutch went back to his novel. Reeves sat motionless, staring at nothing. Processing. Running the mission in his head over and over, looking for the flaw that would get someone killed. Ethan sat alone. He pulled out his phone. No signal at altitude, but the photos still worked. He scrolled through them. Lily at the park. Lily at the diner with chocolate on her face. Lily on the first day of school, backpack bigger than she was. Lily asleep with Captain tucked under her chin. He stopped on one photo. Rachel. It was the only photo of her he kept on his phone. She was standing in their old kitchen, the one in Virginia, before Cedar Falls. Before the diagnosis. She was laughing at something he'd said, he couldn't remember what, and the light was hitting her face in a way that made her look like she was glowing. He stared at it. "I'm doing the right thing," he said quietly. Not to anyone, not even to himself, really. To her. "Tell me I'm doing the right thing." The photo didn't answer. But somewhere inside him, in the place where Rachel still lived, in the way Lily tilted her head when she was thinking, in the stubbornness, in the quiet courage, he heard her. "You always were. You just forgot." He put the phone away. He closed his eyes, and for the second time in a week, he didn't dream. 14 hours later, they landed at a forward operating base that didn't appear on any map. The heat hit them like a wall. The air tasted like dust and diesel. A young lieutenant met them on the tarmac. He looked at Ethan's team. 4 men in civilian clothes, no patches, no rank, no identification, and had the good sense not to ask questions. "Your staging area is prepped, sir. Comms are set. Weather window for insertion is tomorrow night, 0100. "Show me the latest imagery," Ethan said. "Yes, sir." They walked across the base, past rows of tents, past vehicles with mounted weapons, past young soldiers who looked at them with a kind of curiosity that said they knew something was happening, but didn't know what. Ethan didn't see any of it. He was already inside the compound, already walking the hallways in his mind, already counting steps, counting guards, counting the seconds between breach and extraction. Already hearing an 8-year-old girl's voice asking when she could go home. 24 hours. In 24 hours, he'd either keep his promise or he wouldn't. There was nothing in between. The 24 hours before insertion were the longest of Ethan's life. Not because of the mission. He'd waited before. He'd spent entire nights lying in dirt, motionless, breathing through his nose, counting minutes until a target moved into position. Waiting was part of the job. You learned to make peace with it, or you washed out. This was different. This time, the waiting wasn't tactical. It was personal. Every hour that passed was an hour closer to a door he'd either walk back through, or he wouldn't. And behind that door, a 7-year-old girl was sleeping in a borrowed bed, holding a stuffed bear named Captain, waiting for her father to call. He found a satellite phone at the comm station. The young lieutenant gave him privacy without being asked. Ethan dialed Gloria's number. It rang 3 times. "Hello?" It's me. Ethan, hold on. He heard movement, a door closing. Then Gloria's voice again, lower. She's in the other room, doing homework. You want to talk to her? How is she? She's fine. She ate everything I put in front of her. She told me a story about an octopus with 3 hearts. She asked me if I knew that, and when I said no, she looked at me like I was the dumbest person alive. Ethan almost smiled. That sounds right. She asked about you 4 times. I told her you were working, and you'd call when you could. Did she cry? Gloria paused. Once, right before bed. She held it together all day, and then when I turned the light off, she said she missed you, and she wanted to go home. I sat with her until she fell asleep. Ethan pressed his forehead against the wall, closed his eyes. Ethan, you still there? Yeah, I'm here. You want to talk to her? He wanted to. God, he wanted to. But he knew what would happen. He'd hear her voice, and every wall he'd built inside himself to get through the next 30 hours would come down. He couldn't afford that. Not tonight. Tell her I called. Tell her I love her. Tell her I'll call again soon. I'll tell her. Gloria. Yeah? Thank you. Don't thank me. Come home. He hung up. He stood at the comm station for a full minute. Then he took a breath, pushed everything down, the fear, the love, the guilt, all of it, into that locked room inside his chest where he'd kept the operator for 5 years. Except now, the door was open, and the operator was the one standing in the light. He went back to his team. They spent the remaining hours in final preparation. Gear check, comms check, weapons check. Every round counted, every battery tested, every contingency reviewed one last time. At 2100, Ethan gathered them. Last brief, he said. Reeves, you're on Overwatch. North Ridge, thermal scope. I need eyes on every moving body in that compound from the moment we're in range. Copy. Dutch, Torres, you breach the outer wall at points Alpha and Bravo, simultaneously. You neutralize the perimeter guards. Quiet. Suppressed weapons only. No explosives unless the situation forces it. Torres looked personally offended. No explosives? Why'd you even bring me? Because you're the best close-quarters fighter I've ever worked with when you're not blowing things up. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Don't get used to it. Once the perimeter is clear, you push inward, building by building. Systematic. We know the hostages are likely in the northeast structure, but likely isn't confirmed. If they've been moved, we adapt. And you? Dutch asked. I take the northeast building, alone. Dutch shook his head. No. It's not a discussion. You're walking into a building with unknown interior layout, unknown number of hostiles, and 4 civilians, 2 of them children, and you want to do it solo? The kids are the variable. If we go in heavy, they panic. Screaming, running, chaos. In the dark, in a firefight, a scared child can get killed by either side. I go in alone. I keep it controlled. I keep it quiet. And if there are 6 guys in there, then I handle 6 guys. Ethan, Dutch, I made a promise. To my daughter. To a little girl I've never met. I told them I'd bring her home. I'm not sending someone else through that door. It's me. Dutch stared at him. The argument was right there, sitting in his jaw, ready to come out. But something in Ethan's eyes stopped it. Fine, Dutch said. But I'm outside that door. 30 seconds. If I don't hear your voice in 30 seconds, I'm coming in. 60. 45. Deal. At 0100, the helicopter lifted off. No lights, no radio chatter, just the thud of rotors and the rush of night air. 4 men in the dark, moving toward a place where a family was waiting. 12 miles out, the helicopter set down. They exited fast. The bird was gone in seconds, swallowed by the darkness. Ethan took point. They moved in single file across open ground. No talking. Hand signals only. The terrain was flat and dry, and the only sound was the crunch of gravel underfoot and the wind pushing dust across the desert. 3 hours. That's how long it took to cover the 12 miles on foot. 3 hours of steady, disciplined movement. No stops, no breaks. Just forward motion, guided by GPS and the kind of internal compass that only comes from years of operating in places where the map doesn't match the ground. At 0350, Reeves split off. He climbed the low ridge to the north and settled into position. His voice came through the earpiece 2 minutes later. Overwatch set. I have eyes on the compound. 15 heat signatures. 4 on the perimeter wall. 2 on the main gate. 3 in the central building. 2 mobile between structures. 4 in the northeast building. That's our target. 4 in the northeast, Ethan repeated. Hostiles or hostages? 2 large, 2 small. Positions are static. The 2 large signatures are against the far wall. The 2 small ones are close together, near the center of the room. That's them. The adults against the wall, the children in the middle. I'm also reading 2 additional signatures in the room, standing, mobile, armed, based on profile shape. 2 guards. Confirmed. 2 guards inside with the hostages. Ethan processed. 4 hostages, 2 armed guards, 1 entrance. He'd have to neutralize both guards before either could react, before either could turn a weapon on the family. In a dark room, with children present. He'd done harder things, but never with stakes this personal. Dutch, Torres, you ready? Born ready, Torres said. That's not a real answer. Ready, Torres said. Dutch, set. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, go! They moved. Torres went left. Dutch went right. The perimeter wall was 8 feet high, clay and concrete, crumbling in places. They went over it like water over stone, silent, fluid, practiced. Ethan heard the first guard go down through the earpiece. A soft thud. Then Torres's whisper. Alpha clear. 3 seconds later. Bravo clear. 2 down. 2 more on the main gate. Dutch and Torres converged. Ethan tracked their movement through Reeves' callouts. 2 tangos at the gate, facing south. They don't see your guys. Dutch, Torres, gate guards, take them. Silence. Then 2 sounds that weren't quite sounds, more like sharp whispers of air. Suppressed rounds. Gate clear. 4 perimeter guards down in under 90 seconds. No alarms, no shots heard. Now the hard part. Ethan moved along the inside of the compound wall, staying in shadow. Reeves fed him a constant stream of information. 2 mobile tangos, center courtyard. They're talking. Stationary for now. 3 in the central building, no movement. You're clear to the northeast structure. He reached the door. Wood. Old. 1 hinge rusted. No lock visible. He pressed his back against the wall beside it and controlled his breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Heart rate dropping. Focus narrowing. 2 guards inside. 2 adults. 2 children. He had to be perfect. Not good, not great. Perfect. Because anything less than perfect meant a child could die. Dutch, I'm at the door. Right behind you, 45 seconds. Starting now. He opened the door. It didn't creak. Small mercy. He stepped inside and let his eyes adjust. Night vision was already on. The room materialized in shades of green and black. The first guard was standing 6 feet to his left, a K-47 slung across his chest. He was leaning against the wall, head tilted, half asleep. The second guard was at the far end of the room, alert, rifle in his hands, facing the hostages. The Mercers were exactly where Reeves had said. David and Sarah were sitting against the far wall. David's arm was around his wife. Their faces were drawn, exhausted, hollow. The children were on a thin mattress in the center of the room. Thomas was sitting up, staring at nothing. Emma was curled on her side, knees pulled to her chest, eyes closed. Ethan took the first guard in 2 steps, left hand over the mouth, right arm around the neck, rear naked choke. Precise, controlled. The guard struggled for 4 seconds, then went limp. Ethan lowered him to the floor without a sound. The second guard heard something. He turned. Ethan was already moving. The guard raised his rifle. His finger found the trigger. Ethan closed the distance in 3 strides. He caught the barrel with his left hand and redirected it toward the ceiling. With his right, he delivered a strike to the throat. Not hard enough to crush, but hard enough to shut down the voice and the breath simultaneously. The guard's eyes went wide. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Ethan stripped the rifle from his hands, swept his legs, and put him on the ground. A second choke. 8 seconds. Unconscious. 10 seconds total. Both guards down. No shots fired. No sound louder than a body hitting dirt. David Mercer was staring at him, wide-eyed, shaking. His arms tightened around his wife. Who are you?" Ethan pulled off his night vision. He knelt so he was at eye level. "My name is Ethan. I'm an American. I'm here to take you home." Sarah Mercer made a sound. Not a word, just a sound. Something between a gasp and a sob. The kind of noise that comes out of you when you've been holding your breath for days and someone finally tells you it's okay to breathe. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my God, oh my God." "Listen to me," Ethan said. His voice was calm, steady. The same voice he used when Lily was scared of thunder. "We don't have much time. I need you to stay quiet, stay close, and do exactly what I tell you. Can you do that?" David nodded. He was crying, tears running into his beard. His hands were shaking so hard he could barely hold on to his wife. "Can you walk?" Yes, we can walk." "Your son, Thomas." The boy was staring at Ethan, frozen. His eyes were too big for his face, and he wasn't blinking. "Thomas," Ethan said gently. "Hey, buddy, look at me." The boy looked. "We're going home, okay? I'm going to get you out of here. But I need you to be brave for a little while longer. Can you be brave?" Thomas swallowed. His chin trembled, but he nodded. "Good man." Then Ethan turned to Emma. She was awake. She'd been awake the whole time, lying on her side, eyes open, watching everything. Not crying, not screaming, just watching, with an expression that no 8-year-old should ever have. The expression of someone who has been afraid for so long that fear has become a kind of stillness. Ethan knelt beside her. "Emma?" She didn't move. "Emma, my name is Ethan. I'm here to help you." Nothing. "I have a daughter," he said. "Her name is Lily. She's 7. She told me to tell you something." Emma's eyes shifted, just barely. A flicker of something behind the blankness. "Lily says hi, and she says you're brave, even if you don't feel like it." Emma looked at him, really looked at him, and something broke open in her face. Not tears, not yet, but the beginning of them. The thaw before the flood. "I want to go home," she whispered. "I know you do, and I'm going to take you there. But I need you to hold my hand and not let go. Can you do that?" She sat up, slowly. She looked at his hand. Then she reached out and grabbed it. Her grip was so tight it hurt. "I'm not letting go," she said. "Good. Neither am I." Ethan keyed his earpiece. "Package secured. 4 hostages, all alive. Moving to extraction." "Copy," Reeves said. "Compound's still quiet. You've got a window. Move fast." "Dutch?" "Right here." Dutch's voice came from just outside the door. "I counted to 44. You're lucky." "Get us out." Dutch stepped in. He took one look at the family, the exhausted parents, the shell-shocked boy, the little girl gripping Ethan's hand, and his entire demeanor changed. The grizzly bear became something else, something gentler. "Hey folks," he said. "I'm Dutch. I'm the big friendly one. We're going to take a little walk now. Stay behind me. Stay quiet. Everything's going to be fine." David Mercer stood up. He pulled Sarah to her feet. Thomas pressed against his father's side. Ethan picked up Emma. She weighed almost nothing. She wrapped her arms around his neck and buried her face against his shoulder. "Close your eyes," he told her. "Don't open them until I say." She closed them. They moved. Out the door. Across the compound. Dutch on point. Torres covering the rear. Reeves calling movements from Overwatch. 2 tangos, central building, still inside. No movement." "Copy." "You're clear to the east wall." They reached the wall. Dutch went over first. Ethan handed Emma to him, then helped Sarah over. David lifted Thomas. Torres went last, walking backward, rifle up, eyes on the compound. They cleared the wall. Open ground. 1.5 kilometers to the extraction point. "Reeves, collapse Overwatch. Meet us at the EP." "Moving." They ran. Not a sprint. A steady, ground-eating pace. David Mercer was struggling. His legs were weak from days of captivity, but he kept moving. Sarah held Thomas's hand and pulled him forward. Dutch led the way. Ethan carried Emma. She kept her eyes closed the entire time, her face pressed into his neck, her breath hot and fast against his skin. "You're okay," he told her. "You're okay. Almost there." Halfway to the extraction point, Reeves's voice came through the earpiece, sharp, urgent. "Alarm. They found the guards. Compound is lighting up. I count 8, 10 tangos mobilizing. Vehicles starting." "How long until they reach us?" "On foot, 8 minutes. Vehicles, 4. Ethan's mind calculated. 1.5 kilometers total. They'd covered about half. 700 meters to go. With civilians, at their current pace, that was 5 to 6 minutes. Not enough. "We need to move faster," Ethan said. "The father's barely standing," Torres said. "Dutch, take the boy." Dutch scooped Thomas up without breaking stride. The boy gasped, but didn't scream. "David," Ethan said, "I need you to run. Can you run?" David Mercer looked at him. Exhaustion and pain and fear all fighting for control of his face. But underneath all of it, determination. The determination of a father who had lied to his children and told them someone was coming. And someone had actually come. "I can run." "Then run." They ran. Sarah Mercer found something inside herself that she probably didn't know existed. She ran like a woman who had spent 5 days wondering if her children would ever see sunlight again. And now, the sunlight was 700 meters away. 500 meters. "Vehicles moving. 3 technicals heading east from the compound. 300 meters. Ethan could hear engines now, distant but closing. 200 meters. Helo inbound, 2 minutes. We don't have 2 minutes. 100 meters. Headlights swept across the desert behind them. The technicals were closing fast. Torres! On it! Torres stopped, turned, dropped to one knee. He pulled something from his pack. I thought you said no explosives, Ethan called back. You said unless the situation forces it. Consider it forced. Torres fired a rocket-propelled grenade at the lead vehicle. The night split open. The technical erupted in a ball of fire that lit the desert orange for half a second. The other 2 vehicles swerved, braked. The fighters inside scrambled out, disoriented by the explosion, unsure of what they were facing. Torres fired again. Not at a vehicle this time, at the ground between the 2 technicals. The blast sent up a wall of dirt and rock. Confusion. Chaos. That buys us 90 seconds, Torres said, already running to catch up. You're welcome. The helicopter appeared from the east. Black, fast, no lights. It flared hard and set down 50 meters ahead. Go! Ethan shouted. Dutch reached the helicopter first. He put Thomas inside. Sarah scrambled in after him. David followed, collapsing onto the floor of the cabin. Ethan carried Emma to the door. He tried to set her inside. She wouldn't let go. Her arms were locked around his neck, her fingers digging into his jacket. Emma, I need to put you down. No! You're safe. Your mom and dad are right here. Don't leave! He felt it, the crack in his chest. The one that had started in a diner in Cedar Falls, when a 7-year-old girl whispered, Please, help her. I'm not leaving. I'm getting on right behind you. But I need you to let go for 5 seconds. Can you count to 5? She shook her head against his neck. Emma, 5 seconds, I promise. She loosened her grip. Just enough. He set her in Sarah's arms. Sarah pulled her daughter close and covered her with her body like a human shield. Ethan climbed in. Reeves arrived at a dead sprint and dove through the door. Torres was last, firing 3 more rounds into the darkness before throwing himself inside. Go, go, go! The helicopter lurched off the ground. The door gunner opened up on the approaching fighters. Suppressive fire, keeping heads down, buying altitude. Rounds pinged off the fuselage. One hit the tail. The helicopter shuddered, but kept climbing. And then they were out, above the gunfire, above the chaos, above the desert floor where 5 days of fear and darkness were shrinking into nothing. The cabin was dark and loud, and nobody spoke for a long time. David Mercer held his wife. Sarah held Emma. Thomas sat between his parents, silent, gripping his father's arm so hard his knuckles were white. Dutch sat in the corner, bleeding from a cut on his forearm he hadn't noticed. Torres was grinning, because Torres was always grinning after something exploded. Reeves was still, eyes closed, breathing like a man who'd just set down a weight he'd been carrying for hours. And Ethan sat across from the Mercer family and watched them hold each other. Emma opened her eyes. She looked at him through the dark, and she mouthed 2 words he couldn't hear over the rotors, but could read on her lips as clearly as if she'd shouted them. Thank you. He nodded. He leaned his head back against the bulkhead and closed his eyes. The helicopter flew east, toward the base, toward safety, toward a satellite phone that he'd used to call a diner waitress in Cedar Falls and asked to speak to his daughter. Inside his pocket, Rachel's wedding photo pressed against his chest. He could feel it through the fabric. Warm from his body heat, creased from years of being carried, faded from 5 years in a duffel bag in the back of a closet. He didn't take it out. He didn't need to. He just pressed his hand against his chest, over the pocket, and held it there. The mission was over, but the night wasn't. The debrief wasn't. The 33 days weren't. Because the helicopter that carried them to safety didn't land in the United States. It landed at the forward operating base, and within 12 hours, the situation changed. Intelligence came in that the Harakat militia, enraged by the rescue, had taken 6 local villagers hostage in retaliation. 3 women, 2 elderly men, a teenage boy. The Admiral's voice came over the secure line, measured, careful. "This wasn't part of the deal, Ethan. I know that." "No, sir, it wasn't. The local government has requested assistance, quietly, off the record, the same way they requested it the first time." Ethan looked at his team. They were exhausted. Torres had a bruised rib. Dutch's arm needed stitches. Reeves hadn't slept in 42 hours. They were all looking at him. 30 days, Admiral. That's what you said." "I know what I said." "My daughter is waiting for me." "I know." Ethan closed his eyes. 6 people, 3 women, 2 old men, a teenager. The weight he'd tried to set down, the weight his daughter had handed back to him. He opened his eyes. "We go, tonight." That second mission took 4 days. Then another situation arose. Then another. Not because the Admiral kept asking, but because the world kept needing. Because once you open that door, it doesn't close on command. The 30 days became 33. Every night he could, Ethan called Lily. "Daddy, when are you coming home?" "Soon, baby." "You said that last time." "I know. I'm sorry." "Miss Gloria taught me how to make biscuits." "Yeah? Any good?" "They were amazing. She said they were a little flat, but she's wrong. They were perfect." "I'm sure they were." "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "I still have Captain." "Good." "He misses you too." "Tell him I'll be home soon." "I'm telling him right now. He says hurry up." On the 33rd day, Ethan Cole boarded a transport plane headed home. His hands were bruised. His ribs ached. There was a scar on his left shoulder that hadn't been there 5 weeks ago. But he was alive. Dutch sat beside him. The big man was quiet. He'd been quiet since the last mission, where a round had passed close enough to his head that it took a piece of his ear. "You good?" Ethan asked. "I'm a man with half an ear who got pulled off a fishing boat. I'm fantastic." "I owe you." "Yeah, you do. Fishing trip, beer, and a new ear." 2 out of 3. Dutch looked at him, serious now. "Ethan." "Yeah?" "What you did in there, with the Mercer girl, the way you talked to her, the way you carried her. It was part of the job." "No, it wasn't. It was something else. And every man on this team saw it." Dutch paused. "You're not the same operator you were 5 years ago. You're better. Because now you're doing it for a reason that matters." Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. The plane flew west, and the war got smaller, and home got closer with every mile. The transport plane touched down at the same unmarked airfield where it had all started 33 days ago. Same runway, same cracked tarmac, same smell of jet fuel and dry grass. But nothing felt the same. Ethan walked down the ramp and stopped. The Admiral was waiting. Same posture, same silver hair, same stars on his collar. But something in his face was different. Softer, maybe. Or just tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "Welcome home, Master Chief." "Don't call me that." Whitmore almost smiled. "Old habits." They stood there for a moment. Two men on an empty runway, with nothing between them except the weight of what had happened and the silence that followed. "The Mercer family," Ethan said. "Where are they?" "Stateside. David's at Walter Reed for observation. Sarah and the kids are with family in Maryland. They're safe. All of them." "The villagers?" "Released. Alive. Unharmed. Thanks to your team's second operation." "And the third?" "The intelligence you gathered during the third incursion led to the dismantling of 2 Harakat supply lines. That's not something I can put on a citation, because none of this officially happened. But I want you to know, what you did over there mattered." Ethan nodded. He didn't need a citation. He needed a shower, a cheeseburger, and his daughter. "There's a car waiting for you," Whitmore said. "It'll take you home." Ethan started walking. Then he stopped. "Admiral." "Yes?" "You kept your word." Whitmore looked at him. "I told you I would." "I know, but a lot of people tell me things. You're one of the few who followed through." The Admiral reached out his hand. Ethan took it. The handshake was firm and brief, and said everything that words would have made smaller. Then Whitmore reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. Plain, white, no markings. "What's this?" Ethan asked. "An offer. Permanent reinstatement. Full rank. Your own team. Hand-picked operations. The kind of work that doesn't make the news, but changes the world." Ethan held the envelope. He didn't open it. "Think about it," the Admiral said. "No rush, no pressure. The door is open whenever you want to walk through it." Ethan put the envelope in his back pocket. "I'll think about it." He didn't think about it. He knew the answer before the Admiral finished the sentence. He'd known it somewhere over the Atlantic, looking out the window at clouds that looked like cotton stretched thin, thinking about chocolate chip pancakes and a pink nightlight and a stuffed bear named Captain. But he'd let the Admiral have his moment. The man had earned that much. The car drove him north, 4 hours. He sat in the back seat and watched America slide past the window. Gas stations, strip malls, churches, baseball fields with kids in uniforms chasing fly balls. A country that didn't know what had happened, and didn't need to, because that was the whole point. His phone buzzed. A text from Torres. "My wife says I'm a hero. I told her I mostly just blew stuff up. She said that counts. I think she's right." Ethan typed back. "Tell her thanks for lending you to me. She says you owe her dinner. She's not wrong." Another text, from Reeves. No words, just a photo. Reeves standing on his back porch, holding a beer, looking at a sunset. The caption, "Still breathing. Thanks for that." Then Dutch. Of course Dutch. His text was longer than the others because Dutch did everything bigger. "Back in Montana. Boat's still here. Fish are still stupid. Ear is still missing. But I'm alive and the trout are scared, and that's good enough for me. When you're ready for that fishing trip, you know where to find me. Bring Lily. I'll teach her to cast. Every kid should know how to fish, Cole. It's a fundamental human right." Ethan read the message twice. Then he put the phone down and closed his eyes, and let himself feel something he hadn't allowed in 33 days. Relief. Not the sharp, immediate relief of surviving a firefight. Something deeper. The slow, spreading warmth of knowing you did what you said you'd do. That you walked into the dark and you came out, and the people you went in for came out with you. He didn't sleep. He couldn't. He was too close. The car turned off the highway at 6:42 in the evening. Onto the county road. Past the gas station. Past the hardware store where Larry worked. Past the diner where everything had started. Gloria's house was a small blue bungalow at the end of a dead-end street. White trim. Garden out front. A porch with 2 rocking chairs that had been there since before Ethan was born. The car pulled up to the curb. Ethan got out. He stood on the sidewalk. His duffel bag hung from his shoulder. His clothes were wrinkled. His face was thinner. There was a scar on his left shoulder that pulled when he breathed too deep. He walked up the porch steps. The front door opened before he knocked. Gloria stood there, apron on, flour on her hands. She looked at him the way a mother looks at a son who's been gone too long. And for a moment, neither of them spoke. "You look like hell," she said. "Feel like it too." "You hungry?" "Starving." "Good. I made pot roast." She stepped aside. He walked in. The house smelled like food and soap and something else, something warm and lived in, the way a home smells when someone's been taking care of it. "Where is she?" he asked. "Backyard. She's been out there for an hour. I told her you were coming, and she said she wanted to wait outside so she could see you first." Ethan set his bag down. He walked through the kitchen, through the back door. The backyard was small, a patch of grass, a chain-link fence, an old magnolia tree with branches that hung low enough to climb. Lily was sitting in the grass under the magnolia tree. She was drawing something in a notebook. Captain, the bear, was beside her, propped against the trunk like he was supervising. She didn't see him right away. She was focused on whatever she was drawing, tongue poking out the side of her mouth the way it always did when she concentrated. He stood there. 33 days. He'd been gone 33 days. He'd crossed oceans. He'd neutralized armed men in the dark. He'd carried a stranger's daughter through hostile territory. He'd done things that most people couldn't imagine and wouldn't believe. And now he was standing in a backyard in Cedar Falls, watching his 7-year-old draw a picture under a tree, and his hands were shaking. "Lily." She looked up. For 1 second, she didn't move. Her face went through something. Shock, disbelief, hope, all in the space of a heartbeat. Then she dropped the notebook. She dropped the crayon. She launched herself off the ground and ran at him full speed, arms wide open, legs pumping. "Daddy!" She hit him like a freight train, a 45-pound freight train with pigtails and grass-stained knees. He caught her, lifted her, held her so tight that she squeaked. "You're squishing me." "I know." "You're still squishing me." "I know." She pulled back, held his face in both hands, studied him the way she studied everything, with those big, serious Rachel eyes. "You look different." "I've been away for a while." "Your face is skinnier." "I missed your pancakes." "You don't eat my pancakes. You eat Miss Gloria's pancakes." "I missed watching you eat pancakes." She laughed, and the sound of it, God, the sound of it, was like a door opening in a house that had been shut up too long. Light and air and warmth pouring in all at once. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby?" "Did you find her? Emma?" "I found her." "Is she okay?" "She's okay. She's home with her mom and dad." "Did you tell her what I said?" He nodded. "I told her. Lily says hi, and she says you're brave." "What did she say?" Ethan thought about Emma Mercer, 8 years old, gripping his neck in the dark, mouthing "thank you" across a helicopter cabin. She said, "Thank you." Lily smiled, huge, the kind of smile that takes up a kid's whole face. "I knew you'd find her." "Yeah?" "Yeah, because you promised, and you don't break promises." He set her down. She immediately grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the magnolia tree. "Come look at what I drew." She picked up the notebook and held it open. The drawing was done in crayon, a tall man holding a little girl's hand. They were standing in front of a house. The sky was blue. The sun was yellow. There was a tree with a cat in it, because Lily put cats in all her drawings, even though they didn't have a cat. "That's you," she said, pointing to the tall man. "And that's me." "It's good." "I know." She flipped the page. "And this one is you helping Emma." The second drawing showed a figure carrying a smaller figure. There were stars in the sky. Behind them, there was something dark. Lily had colored it in thick, heavy black crayon. "What's the dark part?" he asked. "That's the scary place. But you're carrying her out of it." He stared at the drawing, a 7-year-old's interpretation of what he'd done, rendered in crayon on notebook paper. It was more accurate than any intelligence briefing he'd ever seen. "Can I keep this?" he asked. "Obviously. I drew it for you." He folded it carefully and put it in his pocket, right next to Rachel's photograph. They stayed in the backyard until Gloria called them in for dinner. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans that Lily picked at but didn't eat, because some things about children never change, no matter how much the world does. After dinner, Lily helped Gloria clear the table while Ethan sat in the living room and let the stillness settle over him. The quiet sounds of dishes clinking, Lily's voice chattering about the octopus facts she'd learned while he was gone, Gloria's low laugh. Home. He was home. Later that night, after Lily had brushed her teeth and changed into pajamas and insisted on reading him a book instead of the other way around, she read him a story about a bear who was afraid of the dark, and he did not point out the irony. He sat on the edge of her bed. She was propped up against her pillow with Captain tucked under her arm. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "Are you going to go away again?" He looked at her. The question was simple. The answer wasn't. Because the truth was complicated. The truth was that there would always be someone who needed help. There would always be another door to walk through, another fight to fight, another family in the dark. The Admiral's envelope was in his back pocket, and the world was full of reasons to say yes. But there was only one reason to say no. And she was sitting right in front of him. "No," he said. "Never?" "I can't promise never. But I can promise that my place is here, with you. That's where I belong." She thought about that. What if someone else needs help? There will always be someone who needs help, Lily. But I've done my part, and there are other people who can do it now. Like the men who went with you? Dutch and Torres and Reeves? He was surprised she remembered the names. He'd only mentioned them once, in a phone call, weeks ago. "Yeah, like them." "They sound nice." "Dutch is nice. Torres is loud. Reeves is quiet." "Like you." "A little like me." She yawned, long and slow. Her eyes were getting heavy. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "I told everyone you're a hero." He shook his head. "I'm not a hero, Lily." "Miss Gloria says you are." "Miss Gloria is being nice." "Mrs. Ramos at school says you are too." "Lily." "And the lady at the grocery store asked about you, and I told her my daddy went to help people far away, and she said that's what heroes do." He sighed. "I'm just a dad, baby. That's all." She looked at him with those eyes. Rachel's eyes. The ones that saw through everything. "You're both," she said. He didn't argue, because she was 7 years old, and she was right. And sometimes the truest things in the world come from the smallest people. "Good night, Lily." "Good night, Daddy." He turned off the lamp, left the pink nightlight on, walked to the door. "Daddy?" He stopped. "Yeah?" "I'm glad you came back." "Me too, baby. Me too." He closed the door. He walked to the kitchen, sat down at the table, pulled the Admiral's envelope from his back pocket, and set it in front of him. He stared at it for a long time. Then he picked up a pen, wrote 2 words on the outside of the envelope, and sealed it. No, sir. He'd mail it in the morning. The weeks that followed were quiet. He went back to work. The foreman at the construction site, a grizzled man named Ray, who'd never asked Ethan a personal question in 3 years, looked at him on his first day back and said, "You look like you've been somewhere." Took some time off. Didn't know construction workers took time off. This one did. "Well, the Henderson deck isn't going to build itself. Glad you're back." That was it. No questions, no drama, just work. He picked up Lily from school every day at 3:15. He cooked dinner. He helped with homework. He read bedtime stories. He fixed the broken screen door on the porch that he'd been meaning to fix for 2 years. Saturdays, they went to the diner. Same booth, same order. Black coffee and chocolate chip pancakes. Gloria would come over and refill his cup without being asked, and Lily would tell her about whatever astonishing fact she'd learned that week, and life would feel exactly the right size. But some things had changed. He noticed it first in the diner. People looked at him differently, not with suspicion or curiosity, with respect, the quiet kind. A nod from across the room. A handshake that lasted a beat longer than it needed to. The video from that Saturday morning had spread further than he'd realized. Not viral, not national news, but within the military community, it had become something. A story people told. The construction worker who turned out to be something else. The single dad who stood up when nobody else did. He didn't like the attention. He never had. But he understood that the story wasn't really about him. It was about the moment, the choice, the proof that one person can change the temperature of a room, and sometimes a life, by simply refusing to look away. The young soldier he'd helped at the diner, her name was Specialist Andrea Reyes, filed her charges. The 3 men who had cornered her were court-martialed. 2 received prison sentences. The 3rd was dishonorably discharged. The investigation that followed exposed a pattern of harassment and intimidation within the unit that had been buried for years. Andrea Reyes didn't disappear after the trial. She rose. 3 months after the court-martial, she was promoted. 6 months after that, she was selected for a leadership development program. She began mentoring young women entering the service, telling them the same thing Ethan had told her in that diner. File your report. Don't let anyone talk you out of it. You did the right thing. One day, Ethan received a letter. No return address. Inside was a single handwritten note. Mr. Cole, you don't know me. My name is Andrea Reyes. You helped me in a diner on a Saturday morning when nobody else would. I want you to know that, because of what you did, I stayed in the service. I'm now helping others stay too. I don't know how to thank you for what you did, so I'll just do what you told me. I'll keep doing the right thing. Respectfully, Specialist Reyes. He read it twice. Then he folded it and put it in the same drawer where he kept Lily's crayon drawing and Rachel's photograph. Some things you don't hang on a wall. You keep them close to the chest, where they matter most. Months passed. The seasons turned. Lily turned 8. They had a birthday party at the diner. Gloria made a cake shaped like an octopus, because of course she did. Lily blew out the candles and wished for a cat, which she told everyone because she didn't believe in keeping wishes secret. If you don't tell people what you want, how are they supposed to help you get it? She said. Ethan didn't get her a cat. He got her one the following week. She named it Admiral, which made him laugh harder than he'd laughed in years. On a warm evening in late spring, almost a year after the diner, Ethan was sitting on the porch, watching Lily chase Admiral across the backyard. The screen door was finally fixed. The swing set still stood. The light was going gold the way it does in small towns when the day is letting go. His phone rang. a number he didn't recognize. "Hello? Mr. Cole? This is Sarah Mercer." He sat up straight. "Mrs. Mercer. Please, Sarah. I've been trying to find you for months. The Navy wouldn't give me your name. They said the operation didn't exist. But my husband is persistent, and he has friends in places, and they finally told us." "How are you? How's your family?" "We're good. David's working again. Thomas started middle school. He's playing football. He's terrible, but he loves it." She laughed, small, fragile. The laugh of someone who knows how close she came to never laughing again. "And Emma, how is she?" "She draws, all the time. She drew a picture of a man carrying her. She told her teacher it was the man who saved her. She doesn't know your name, but she remembers you." Ethan's throat tightened. "She asked me to ask you something, if I ever found you." "What?" "She wants to know if Lily is real, the girl who said hi. She wants to know if she's a real person." Ethan looked across the yard. Lily was lying in the grass. Admiral was sitting on her stomach. She was laughing. "She's real," he said. "Would it be okay if Emma wrote her a letter?" "Yeah, that'd be okay. Lily would like that." "Mr. Cole?" "Ethan." "Ethan, I don't have words for what you did. I've tried. For months I've tried. But there aren't words for someone who walks into the worst moment of your life and carries your daughter out of the dark." He closed his eyes. "You don't need words, Sarah. Just take care of your family." "We will, every day." They hung up. A week later, a letter arrived. Pink envelope, stickers on the back. Addressed to Lily in a child's handwriting. Lily opened it at the kitchen table. She read it slowly, mouthing the words. Then she looked up at Ethan with an expression he'd never forget. "Daddy, she wrote to me. Emma wrote to me." "What'd she say?" "She says hi back. She says thank you for being brave. She says her favorite animal is also an octopus." Lily's eyes went wide. "Daddy, she likes octopuses too."
Sounds like you two have a lot in common. Can I write her back?
"Absolutely." Lily grabbed a crayon and started writing immediately. No hesitation, no rough draft. Just words pouring out of her like she'd been waiting for this pen pal her entire life. Ethan watched her write. He leaned against the counter and drank his coffee, and watched his daughter connect with a girl she'd never met. A girl who existed in Lily's world only as a name and a feeling and a reason her father had left and come back. Two little girls, an ocean apart, bound together by a moment that started with a whisper in a diner. He thought about Rachel. He thought about what she'd say if she could see this. Their daughter, sitting at the kitchen table, writing a letter to a child she'd helped save by being brave enough to ask her father to stand up. And he knew, with the same certainty he'd known when he held Lily for the first time, with the same certainty he'd known when he walked away from the service and when he walked back. Rachel would have smiled. She would have put her hand on his shoulder the way Gloria did in the diner. She would have said nothing, because nothing needed to be said. The story was never about the fight in the diner. It was never about the mission. It was never about war or violence or the things men do in the dark. It was about a Saturday morning, a little girl's voice, a father's choice. It was about the moment between silence and action, when a man decides who he is, not who he was, not who the world wants him to be, but who he is, right now, in this breath, in this second. Ethan Cole was a Navy SEAL. He was a warrior. He was a weapon the United States government had spent millions of dollars building. But he was also a man who made turkey sandwiches and fixed screen doors and read bedtime stories about rabbits who build boats. He was a man who drank cold coffee and wiped syrup off chins and lost arguments to a 7-year-old about whether cats should be allowed on the kitchen counter. He was a man who kept his promises, every single one. And when the world knocked on his door and asked him to be something more, he didn't run from it. He answered it. And then he came home. Because that's what strength looks like. Not the kind that puts men on the floor in 10 seconds. Not the kind that carries a child through hostile territory in the dead of night. The kind that sits down at a diner booth on Saturday morning, orders black coffee, watches his daughter eat chocolate chip pancakes, and knows, all the way down to his bones, that this is exactly where he's supposed to be. Life went on. Saturdays stayed sacred. And every morning, Ethan Cole woke up in a small house at the edge of a small town, made breakfast for his daughter, and walked into a world that didn't know his name and didn't need to. Because the bravest thing he ever did wasn't the fight. It wasn't the mission. It was the moment he stood up in a quiet diner because a small voice asked him to. And he never sat back down.